Hello! In today's Tactica video, we're going to review the light mortar team that's available to every army in bolt action. Stay tuned. Alright, so let's kind of talk about the light mortar team. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is better than the medium mortar team, but a lot of people just kind of assume the medium mortar is better simply because it has the 2-inch template versus the 1-inch template of the light mortar. But let's kind of talk about the advantages and disadvantages here. It kind of turns out that, except for the fact that they're both template weapons and hit multiple models, really, when you compare the light mortar and the medium mortar, the advantages of the medium mortar are actually the disadvantages of the light mortar, and vice versa. So let's kind of walk through. Let's look at the medium mortar, the advantages. First of all, it is a 2-inch template, so you're going to get more more models underneath the template than with the light mortar. So right there is something to consider. It's also got a 2-pen instead of a 1-pen because of the larger template. The fact is also that the range on that medium mortar is, pretty much the entire table, with a minimum range of 12 inches, and the light mortar is only out to 24 inches with a minimum of 12. So you don't have the reach, and of course you do have the spotter with the medium mortar, so you can kind of tuck your medium mortar behind cover so it can't be seen and command the table with a spotter. So those are the advantages, and that's something you can't do with the light mortar. However, let's look at the advantages of the light mortar, which are also disadvantages of the medium mortar. The first is that you can move and fire on the advance order. The only thing you can do with a medium mortar is rotate to change the arc, which you may have to do occasionally on a table. But with the light mortar, you can just simply move and fire in any direction. There's no facing required, and you just move and it's a 6. Now, what this allows you to do is escape and still put pressure on the enemy. So if the opponent tries to target you with a mortar or indirect fire, you can move easily with a 2-man team, move outside of the 2 inches that you need to move the footprint in order to escape that ranging in and immediately fire back at something within 24 inches. So you have the ability to kind of scoot and shoot a little bit there. That'll help you also if the enemy is pressing forward, you can kind of retreat and continue lobbing charges in. Still, it is hitting on a 6 unless you stay put, but still, you have the ability to move and fire. Now, the fact that it's a small team is a benefit right there. Most of the time, you're going to be getting hit in long range, so you got long range small team out of the gate. So unless you're in cover, you're getting hit on 5s. As soon as you get in a light cover, you're getting hit on 6s, and as soon as you're behind a wall or in heavy cover, you are getting hit on exceptional or nigh impossible shots, so 6s on 6s. That's a big benefit right there. They're hard to kill, especially if you make it veteran on top of being the small team that it is. Now, the fact that it is a small team and has a small template, it really isn't perceived as a threat by most opponents until they're actually hit by one. I have an opponent that I play against. My light mortar team has really devastated a couple of his units, if not actually wiped him out, has put enough pin pressure on to render that unit pretty innocuous during the game. And so he kind of targets my light mortar team. But until the opponent has that, or you prevent him with a more important target, that light mortar team is not going to be easily shifted or hurt or damaged. So that's something the medium mortar team can't really boast until it takes a casualty. Now finally, this is where it's arguable if it's an advantage or not, but it's actually cheaper. Most of the time it's around 15 points cheaper. If you take a look at the medium mortar, regular is 50 points, veteran is 65 points without the spotter. Light mortar team runs in the neighborhood of 35 to 49 points, I think. So it's really pretty cheap, so you can squeeze it into a list more easily than possibly the medium mortar. So don't overlook it for that particular point. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Japanese have the ability to include 3 light mortars within a rifle squad, and those are slightly different in use than the simple team you see here. However, the one thing I want to point out is because they're 3 separate indirect fire weapons inside that rifle squad, you should strive to fire each of the 3 at a different target if available. Since you've got a rifle squad, you're going to be moving into rifle shooting range 24 inches anyway of most opponent units. You might get a couple other units within that 24-inch range as well. So by picking multiple targets for the rifle squad and each of the 3 mortars, you're going to maximize your pin distribution and potentially affect more units per turn of shooting than if you just concentrate your fire on one unit. That's a key point with those Japanese light mortars. All right, so now let's just kind of take a look from a historical perspective before we go on to looking at a table and how you kind of play out on the table. Historically, light mortars were part of the platoon, as opposed to medium mortars and heavy mortars, which were actually organized within heavy weapons platoons themselves, and those would be assigned to support other platoons in 1s or 2s. So the light mortar is an integral part of a platoon's table of organization equipment in most cases. So, it adds a lot of flavor to your platoon by including that, as opposed to being supported by the medium mortar. It's entirely, a feel and aesthetic. It's not necessarily a tactical thing. However, if you want to consider just a raw platoon and going with just the weapons that a platoon would normally field themselves, the light mortar would be the way to go. But again, that's just a matter of opinion as far as how you want to build your lists. All right, so let's kind of take a look at using the mortar, with light mortar, within the context of an actual engagement. All right, so let's take a look at the tactical situation here. In general, we got squad here, squad here, both in kind of hard cover. 2 squads here in light cover, medium machine gun and heavy cover. The officers behind the light mortar team. Now, here, this is a typical situation. You've got plenty of targets out there for both sides, and both sides need to kind of evaluate what's the biggest threat. For the British player, the biggest threat might be that medium machine gun team, because it's just going to sit and fire. The 2 units of infantry are a threat, but they are going to be more of a threat if they engage in close combat by coming across the open field. So we'll want to put pins on them to minimize their effectiveness and hopefully make them go down if they fail an order test, just delaying them again. The light mortar team is probably going to fire first on that medium machine gun team. The way it's set up, most medium machine gun teams are set up with the 3 individual models in a line, so the best you can do with your 1-inch template is 2 hits. But 2 hits on a regular team, you're killing on 3s. It's pretty good. And vets, you're killing on 4s. So it's, again, very good. Now, if I were to put the light mortar on one of these units, that is probably going to need to charge, simply because most likely there's objectives over here that need to be held. They're likely going to move, so I'm going to need 6s to hit. They're going to move. I'll need 6s to hit next turn, so less likely to have an impact on a more mobile team like this. If the officer were to go down or not move this turn, I could target that officer as well, because I would get 2 of them, and again, killing on 3s or 4s depending on the level unit quality in that case. That could be damaging, but again, he can easily move. So the only way it's going to work is if I fire first in this turn after he has his action, and I fire first next turn before he has an action, because then I have a 6 this turn, a 5 next turn. Because he is likely to move, and he's more free to move than a medium machine gun team. So I'm probably going to go after that medium machine gun team first. Now, if I had the sniper team out there instead, they obviously would go after the light machine guns in the NCOs in these squads, or the officer if I'm stupid enough to get him out in the open like that, or my sniper team if I've deployed one. The light mortar is probably not going to be a target. However, that light mortar team can still target that sniper. And I've had a couple games where the light mortar team has actually taken out the sniper. It definitely does help. So that is kind of an idea of how you would implement using a light mortar team within this. Now, if this unit were to advance in, you can always pull him back and still fire. Because remember, if you've targeted one of these infantry squads and you need a 6 to hit anyway, you might as well go ahead and move him, because you're not going to get any worse to hit than a 6. But that keeps them further away. You can actually retreat your light mortar team off toward the end of the table while trying to score hits. All you need is a 6 on the unit that's hopefully pursuing you, while hopefully other squads are maybe distracting it or firing to put pins on it. One more thing I want to cover before we call this one quits is the use of smoke. Because honestly, smoke is, in the case of the British Army, was the primary purpose of using that light mortar. And I actually put it in my squads, or in my platoons, for that reason initially. A small mortar will get you a 3-inch template of smoke to put down. Again, putting anywhere within range. The thing is, it may not really be all that useful. The way the smoke rules work right now, for a light mortar, it may not be very wise to use it. Of course, it might be. There might be situations when you would. So let's use the same tactical situation here. And we've got the real threat is from that medium machine gun team, because these guys can move relatively freely. So instead of hitting the medium machine gun team, we want to minimize its ability to hit. So putting smoke down obscures you, and I think that's probably a good approach here, because even if we don't prevent it from shooting or by making it move, we can prevent it from shooting us by blocking its visibility. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this small white die as the four-sider as our target point. Okay, we want to put that target point here in front of the medium machine gun team so that it cannot trace a line of sight to either of these units from its position, because you can't shoot through smoke. It's considered dense terrain. So that may be useful. So again, though, you need a 6, and I'm going to roll this one live because most likely you're going to miss, right? And I did with a 4. So what the opponent now can do is he can move it within 12 inches of that point, and this is where things get a little bit, iffy as far as using smoke. Because here he can put it within 12 inches, and he can put it here to kind of obscure the target from here, the medium machine gun team from there. So the mortar team is just basically insulated the target from a large unit there. Of course, he can only see a couple of models, but he can see them anyway, and they've got harder covers. So there's no real benefit of the smoke being here. Okay, he could also be really cheesy and put the smoke right back here, basically making it worthless. Still, though, if I keep my point there, I need a 5 next turn. And so if I don't do anything, I actually have another shot. I'm going to roll. I'll finally get it. So it finally places it here. And now, this is a column here that blocks the shot, essentially all the shooting from this unit on the second turn. Now I have to move it if I'm going to be useful to the German army here. So with the smoke, I've actually gotten lucky on the second shot and placed it where it was. Now there's still smoke here, and had I missed, he could move this anywhere he wants, so as long as it doesn't overlap the original miss. And that's the thing, is you'll have all these pockets of smoke every time you miss until you do finally hit and you got a 2. The advantage, though, of having that 2 is at the end, every turn you roll to see what happens to smoke. If the smoke goes away, you've targeted in, you got a 2, you've ranged in, that means, well, the next turn you can immediately put that smoke right back where it was. Again, blocking him, forcing him to move, and that's really what you want to do. Put the unit in a position where it can't be effective. Now, arguably, it's better to fire the HE round on them and potentially take them out. but just wanted to walk through how you could possibly use smoke in this particular scenario. Now, one of the ways smoke could be useful is with the relic, or I call it the relic, top secret mission. Once you actually do get the objective from the middle, you start taking off. That light mortar team can come out and they can start putting smoke down between the enemy and the target that actually has the top secret documents, making it harder for them to be hit, but because fewer models can actually shoot at them. So there are times maybe the smoke might be useful. The Germans don't get the advantage of smoke. Historically, they did not use smoke with their 50mm mortars, but the British heavily used smoke. Most of the rounds that came out of their light mortar tubes were smoke rounds. So if you want to play historically, you can kind of tailor your approach that way. But again, smoke is a possibility with this mortar, considering it's just one option that you can use. Initially, like I said, I initially started using smoke with this mortar, but I have found that it has definitely devastated many opponents' units by using the regular HE round. So, alright, so we'll call that quits. And again, if you have any comments or questions, we can probably go into a second video to answer your questions on this using the light mortar. But this is a typical light mortar setup. Let me know what you think, share and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.